Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. Our next guests are featured here every month on the third Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Time. Dr. Michele Sherwood is a trained doctor of osteopathy, and Dr. Mark Sherwood is a trained naturopathic doctor. Mark and Michele use an integrated approach that focuses on prevention and lifelong wellness. The Sherwoods have a thriving medical practice, the Functional Medical Institute, and are recognized experts in health and wellness. In their 18 years of practice, they've helped almost 8,000 patients worldwide with an annual reach of over 1.3 million. Together, they've offered 3 books, one entitled Fork Your Diet, Master the 4 Fundamentals of Good Health, Surviving the Garden of Eden, Surprising Biblical Insights to Enjoy Optimal Wellness, and The Quest for Wellness, a practical and personal wellness plan for optimum health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. You can find out more about them at their website at fmidr.com. Here today to talk about emotional eating, destructive behaviors, supplements, best foods, best exercise, best supplements, and how we can get back to optimal health even in these difficult COVID days and every other stressor on the human body and the human mind and the human condition, are Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood. Good to see you, my friends.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. You know, we have the not only your guest on the program, but I am your patient. So
yes, you are.
That's something that I had the pleasure of embracing. A couple of concepts you introduced in my pursuit for wellness, and have been extremely helpful in that area. You know, and the challenge for me from a COVID-19 perspective is how irritated I get when I hear the advice about meetings being held and them saying wear a mask and exercise social distancing, but if you're 65 years old or over, you might want to consider not coming. And I'm thinking, what happened to me 4 years ago that put me into a category that I should be excluded from what would be considered to be a healthy, vibrant person. I should be put in a category of highly susceptible, in a state of rapid decline. I actually wear the same waist size now as I did in high school. I've dropped my body mass index number to a great place with lots of margin in the normal for my height and for my frame. My exercise level has gone off the charts without doing anything more than a lot more walking and adding bands, resistance bands, and 2 little 12-pound dumbbells to it, and then some supplements and some things which we had talked about. But it seems that this COVID virus is almost a commentary on poor aging management.
I agree with that. So interestingly enough, you know, the concept of aging, I think our viewers, we need to reframe this concept of aging. Aging has not been looked at in our assessment appropriately. Aging is a disease process, and if it is a disease process, that means it can be corrected, remediated, and really avoided. If we looked at aging appropriately, what are the signs and symptoms of aging? It's called dysfunction, right? Dysfunction is dis-ease. If we can begin to treat aging like with everything else, which we should, Rabbi Eric, we would see people as people. It doesn't mean like, okay, so the chronological age could be 65. But does that mean their biological age is 65? Absolutely not. Their biological age could be 75 or it could be 55. We have a lot of cool tests that we can sort of determine that with blood testing. But, that's neither here nor there. The point being that, we can actually live biologically younger from our immune system, our musculoskeletal system, our endocrine system, our neurological system, our GI system. We can live less than our age, and I think that's the exciting thing. You can't anti-age, but you can age manage or optimize your aging processes to really minimize this disease called aging. I hope that makes sense. It's a different perspective.
A very different perspective. And anytime I see a patient, I always tell them that I have a medical condition that they need to know about. It's very, very rare in America today, and I want to spread it like wildfire. It's called health. And from a medical standpoint, I think we all should be spreading health. We should be focusing on how to strengthen the immune system, how to make the immune system resilient, how to become disease resilient. But instead, we seem to lock people into houses and make them stay at home, and we're not addressing what are you doing with your nutrition to be strong? What are you doing with your bones to be strong? What are you doing with your mind and your heart to be strong? We are not focusing on being disease resilient. Mm-hmm. And aging is frailty. We can do so many wonderful things if we're paying attention to all the spokes on the wheel on how to manage lifestyle.
You mentioned COVID-19. Clearly that has been something that's disrupted people's lives. Extraordinarily so, from habits, jobs, etc. But just another perspective that I think people need to look at, and we need to think about it in a different way. Turn off the noise of fear, for one. That's just a ridiculous bunch of garbage that we're getting, and I'm being bold and blunt about that. But the idea that COVID-19 has exposed something that has went awry in our country, it's called our health. And now, as Dr. Michele said, health is a rare condition. That is ridiculous that it is. And COVID-19, instead, we view it as a wonderful opportunity. It's a wake-up call. I consider it a kind of a gift, if you will. If we look at gifts correctly, gifts can bring out the best in you. We need to begin to view this as something that has shown our weakness physically, immune system-wise, emotionally, and even spiritually. This is an opportunity for us to step up and own this thing again, manage it. And I think we can really turn this thing around from one person at a time.
In a prior segment, we have Dr. Timothy Jennings, who's the author of The Aging Brain. He is a practicing psychiatrist in Tennessee, and actually a Bible translator. Released the Common Reason Bible translation, has a ministry, commonreason.com. He's written The God-Shaped Heart, The God-Shaped Brain, and The Aging Brain, and steps to reverse early onset of aging. You can't reverse Lewy body, you can't reverse Alzheimer's, but all the other early stage dementias can be reversed nutritionally, lifestyle changes. And so then, and he knows that we have a wellness program that comes on afterwards, and talking about osteopathy and homeopathic remedies, and the holistic approach that needs to be taken in this. And we had a similar conversation about the difference between my 84-year-old father, who passed away at 84, and my 94-year-old mother, who played golf on her 94th birthday.
Yeah.
Wow.
Married together for 50-something years, but led a completely different lifestyle. He was 3 martinis a day and red meat and smoked, and she had none of those habits and remained active, and he retired and went sedentary. you know, I went through my season of sedentary, and then kind of the wake-up call was like, you're just like off the charts sedentary. Like you don't move for anything. Almost everything will just come to you.
Right.
You know, you sit in front of a computer and you create teachings, preachings, write books. You're constantly sitting. You're not moving, and you're doing this 18 hours a day, and you're in the Word, and it's wonderful spiritually.
Yep.
You know, you're 18 years old, and physically you're 99.
That's right.
And
Very good point.
and heading down the wrong path. But in this COVID susceptibility and the response to the COVID virus, I have to think through my lifetime of over 68 years. We've had global outbreaks of other viruses and flus, polio, smallpox. I mean, there's been other, and we didn't respond to it this way.
That's right.
And the morbidity rate seems to be in the nursing homes and people who have already had compromised immune system that's where the mortality rate is. So there's a very powerful positive message in that is if you don't want to be susceptible to these kind of things, you need to look at the contributing factors, and one of them is obesity, which is if you're obese, you're going to have heart impact, whether or not it is a heart attack, or it is an overstressed cardiovascular system, or it's a compromised system, or there's diabetes, or there's liver, kidney, other, even in my conversation with you about a supplement. I said at my age, this supplement being sold by many, many companies has a negative impact on, I think it was liver or kidney, I forget which one we talked about, and said, you know, I've been told to stay clear of this, and you confirmed it and said, yes, you should, unless it's this purity, unless it's this strength, and unless you're doing it this way. That's exactly right. What people are self-dosing are measurements of a non-pure, commercially available, not certified by any laboratory, commercial product. And this brings us into the category of there's a lot of people that take a lot of supplements for a lot of things because the commercials say these are anti-aging. Right? You're gonna. I love the one about the testimonies. I've been taking this product for 8 years, and I used to have fuzzy thinking, but now my brain is alive and it's alert, and it's all because of this medication, which is made out of some sea creature, not shark fins, but I don't know.
Shark cartilage.
Yeah, octopus eyelids. I mean, some obscure sea life which has been ground up, and it's going to change your brain chemistry. A carrot changes your brain chemistry.
That's right.
Correct.
So I think there's a lot of confusion over the role of supplements. And you know, I walked down the aisle, and this was in the conversation we had a couple months ago about collagen and the misconception of as you age you need more calcium, and that's not true. You need more collagen, and it actually tested out and proved out, because there have been 3 occasions walking the dog where I have stepped into something and twisted and know that I would have in the past had a sprained ankle or had an injury I could feel there was a stressor, and that stressor would have had an impact.
Mm-hmm.
However, after 45 days of using a collagen supplement, though they happened, I recognized it, wondered to myself, I wonder if there's going to be any effect. But 20 yards down the road, the incident was memory, and there was never a reminder of it.
That's right.
Knowing that the part of the body that would have been impacted would have been the ligaments and tendons in my ankle, but I had done something to strengthen them.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal with you mentioned supplements, and this is this is something that people should listen to right now and re-listen to again and again. The supplement industry that is out there as a whole has very little regulation, very little standardization, and very little sort of level as far as purity goes. It is all legal. You can say anything you want about any supplement. You can have any testimony you want. There is actually a website that you can go to, and you can buy a testimonial from a real person video, and you can plug it in. Anything you say about a supplement is okay, even untruths with the FDA. Now, what did I just say? It's okay to lie about a supplement, and it's legal to lie about a supplement. Is it right? No, but it's legal. As long as you can say anything you want. Here's the qualifier. As long as you don't say it treats, heals, or prevents disease process. That's the disclaimer. As long as it doesn't do that, as long as it doesn't say that this supplement is going to reverse cancers, something like that as an example, you can say anything you want. You can say, like you mentioned, I took this supplement for 2 days, and let me tell you something. I've lost 20 pounds of fat immediately, and now I have a six-pack abs. Before I had a keg that I was carrying around. You can say that, and that sells like wildfire. People buy that, and that's why it's multi-billions of dollars of industry out there. And Michele and I, man, clearly, Rabbi Eric, we want people to have the best. We are absolutely not loyal to any company, but we are loyal to the people we work with, because it's a partnership, it has integrity, and every sort of supplement one looks at needs to have CGMP at least on there. There are others, but that's certification, certified good manufacturing practice, that says that supplement meets that sort of criteria we're looking for, which means anything in the production line, pre, during, or post, that capsule can be picked up, and it can, if it doesn't have exactly what the label says or more, that company loses that certification, period. Now, that type of certification, it's not out there to the public. It's just not. You can go in, well-known pharmacies, you can go well-known grocery stores, and even supplement stores, and it's the wild, wild west. And then you've got somebody that's 20 years old that's been given this testimonial, as you mentioned, and all they are is regurgitating what they're told. There's nothing to that, and that's really hurt, because in the medical side of things, they're not going to trust anything that doesn't have these double-blind random placebo studies attached. So they're going to look at this and go, well, that's quackery. That can't work because it's been tainted. But without question, and I think you would agree, proper use of supplementation at the right time, the right amount, the right form, that is food-based nutrition coming in, and will absolutely restore and correct some of these disease and aging processes.
And we talk about, you can't out-supplement a bad diet. So if your nutritional protocol is full of inflammatory mediators and things that are causing disease and degeneration, you can't just take supplements to fix that. Food is foundational. Food is medicine. What we eat, 85% of our long-term outcome is nutrition, 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 and it's at the end of our fork. It's something that we do every single day, 3 times a day. And if we're making bad decisions the majority of the time, those supplements no matter what the quality, are not going to be able to overcome the inflammation from that and the toxic waste products that the body is trying to overcome with that incoming pollution. So we say the solution to pollution is dilution. You got to dilute the incoming garbage and give the body what it needs, good clean food, and then add the supplementation over the top so that you get the body's genetic machinery optimized.
Now, you got a little bit of thing we'll show everybody. Here it is right here. You see that? This is a 3-pound dumbbell with a fork welded on the end of it, and so the greatest medical decision one does make is in the fork. I made this a couple years ago because people said, I can't exercise, I don't have time. So we thought, well, let's get them a dumbbell where they can eat with it. Then we started to think about, well, maybe we could market these things and sell them as gifts, and we thought that won't work well because somebody could drop it on their foot and stab themselves, and then guess what? They're going to own us. So it's really important, as she said, to put the right stuff in from a food-based supplement and from food. If we don't do that, to add this statement one step further, you can't pray away a bad diet either. It's like saying, okay, pastor, pray for me. I've got type 2 diabetes. And then they take you out for a buffet at a pizza buffet afterwards. That's just a ridiculous concept. I mean, funny, but not funny.
There's and it's an old joke, but of course, back when Catholics only ate fish on Friday, all of a sudden a neighbor smells over his neighbor's fence. Doesn't smell like chicken, it smells like beef. And he looks over the fence, and because he wonders, he knows he's Catholic, why isn't he eating fish on Friday? And there he is with a pail of water, and he's going, you were born a cow, you were raised a cow, but now you are a fish.
Wow, that's good. I like that.
We can't change the composition of what we eat. We have to change what we eat. And you asked an important question: is aging an end result of disease or a disease itself?
Yeah.
And we talked about genetics and epigenetics in the previous segment, and why somebody can be 70 years old and looks 50, and why somebody can be 70 years old and looks like they're on death's door. And that's lifestyle, and a certain amount of genetics plays a part in that. But I also know that in counseling with you, that there are ways for us to reverse some of these damaging effects that are we've treated them medically through pharmacology as opposed to the source. And I'll give you a perfect example. When I was traveling globally for 35 years on an airplane, gone 48 weeks out of the year, eating, drinking, I had gout. And they put me on allopurinol. And they told me that I would be on allopurinol for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they said. This is, once you're on it, the effect of going off of it will trigger just a return. You got it, that's it. And after I got off the road and began to realize the lifestyle that I had been living, I made certain changes and removed pork and shellfish and some other items, and continued up until a point where I made the decision to say, if I'm not eating what's contributing to the disease, why am I still taking the prevention?
Good question.
So I went to the doctor and I said, here's the list of medications that you gave me when my triglycerides were high, when my cholesterol was out of range, when my uric acid levels were off the charts. Now my uric acid levels are normal. My lipids are all normal. I don't want to take your statin drug. I don't want to take your allopurinol anymore. I don't want any of the medications. I'm not going to take them anymore. And so he said, okay, here's the potential consequence. You could have a flare-up. I said, from the research I've done, unless I introduce the trigger, I will not have the response. If I don't cause something to increase my uric acid level, it won't do it on. I don't have a congenital uric acid problem. It's what I'm eating, which is the contributing factor. And once I stopped, I never had another gout attack and didn't eat those foods. So management, wise management, knowing right from wrong, knowing what to do, can reverse the impact of some of the bad decisions that we've made, and we can reclaim our health. Diagnosis is a Polaroid snapshot of where you are at this moment in time.
That's right.
Yes.
And I think if we need to look at diagnosis from a different angle too. A diagnosis is trying to determine what's wrong. Well, it doesn't tell you what's wrong where. It just tells you what's wrong. And it's looking for something from either the downstream end, which is like, okay, you got uric acid buildup, so you're going to take allopurinol. Diagnosis, right? But what if we changed our trajectory of diagnosis and says, like you did, what is causing the buildup of uric acid? Therefore, the diagnosis of you is eating too much of food A. See, that's a different angle of diagnosis. We need to diagnose upstream to produce healing downstream versus diagnosing downstream, which all it is when it floods, we're just throwing a sandbag at it, which is a pill. It doesn't fix the upstream processes. So if we, just as a people, begin to switch our viewpoint, perhaps more to God's viewpoint, and we would see ourselves in a different way and get correction.
People trust doctors implicitly. Way too much. I don't trust. I kind of adopted my mother's opinion. She's 94. She plays golf twice a week. The doctor asks her, what medicines do you take? She says none. Doctor says, why don't you take any of the medicines? And she said, because you killed all my friends.
I love that.
They took the medicines you prescribed. They're dead. I don't take your suggested medications, and I play golf twice a week, right? And I go dancing on the weekends, and I'm 94. So, you tell me, okay, which was the better approach? She doesn't have heart disease. She doesn't have cancer. She doesn't have. She doesn't really have any overt signs of aging. She's still able to play golf twice a week. She has no stiffness in her joints. The only change that she's actually made was at 90. She had a friend who was 105, and she asked her friend who was 105, how did you live to be 105? She said, because I've had a martini at 5 o'clock every day since I was 35. She said, so you're telling me for 70 years you had a martini every day at 5 o'clock and you've lived to be 105? And she said, it's the only thing I do different than anybody else I know, living or dead. So at 90, my mother started to have a martini at 5 o'clock every day. She says, must be working. I'm 94. I feel fine. I love that. Yeah, I don't drink alcohol, so this is not an endorsement for that. It's just to share a humorous story. But one of the things that I've noticed is the city she lives in, which is Pittsburgh, which is mostly populated by Eastern Europeans, from where we're from. I'm a first-generation American, so where I'm from, where my people are from, We have the average age, their lifespan is in the 90s. Their obituaries, it's always somebody 90 or above who's passing away. They sail through the 80s just fine. It's in the 90s and latter 90s, 97, 98. Many 100-year-olds, active 100-year-olds in Pittsburgh. It's really quite extraordinary. But they maintain the lifestyle, the diet of the old country. We still eat the old country way. We still eat the old country vegetables. We still eat the broths of Judaism. Is where you get the collagen. The broths.
That's right.
Is where you get. It's the whole. It's the whole animal.
Head to tail. That's right.
And it makes a difference. We're talking with Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, as we do on the third Thursday of every month at the 11 o'clock hour, as we talk about wellness. And we're talking about wellness not just in the physical wellness, but in the emotional and spiritual wellness area. But the reality is, if I don't feel good, I'm not going to go to church. If I don't feel good, I'm not going to open my Bible. If I don't feel good, I'm not going to participate in a lot of the activities that would nourish my spirit. And so there is a direct link, and it is cart and horse. It is in order. Which came first, the illness or the spiritual condition? That's a question for us to talk about when we come back from break. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back on the other side, we're going to talk about the aging process. We're going to talk about the ramifications of a sedentary versus active lifestyle, things you can do, supplements to consider, and ways that you can fulfill what God's design for your life is, which is ultimately our goal, is to get you in alignment with God's plan for your life, for your body, for your mind, for your health, and for your spirit. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and my special featured guests twice per month with Rabbi Zeb Parat and Carl Gallups, and monthly with Dr. Michael Heiser, Dr. Michael Lake, Dr. Timothy Jennings, Dr. Mark Baker, Dr. Jeffrey Johnson, Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, Dr. Kim Moss, Derek Gilbert, Peter Rosenberger, Brandon Gallups, Steve Fair, Stephen Black, and Sean Tabbitt for in-depth insights into Israel, prophecy, the unseen realm, the brain, spiritual warfare, overcoming shame, mysteries of the Bible, prophetic insights, the sensational and the supernatural, caregiving, addiction recovery, understanding the divided heart, same-sex attraction, and much more. We're proud to feature some of the greatest biblical minds from both Israel and around the United States. Check out our featured guest lineup and 24/7 feed on ignitinganation.com, or watch by topic on any device with our free apps. If you can't find what you need, you're just not looking in the right place. Follow us on social media and download our free apps today.
With today's smartphone technology, news, information, sports, and entertainment is widely available and almost unbounded. But what about the information that believers in Yeshua are looking for? Well, now there's an app for that. Igniting a Nation now has apps available for Android and iPhone. With our app, you'll gain access to everything you would in our website, from our featured guests to our live streaming shows. Visit Google Play or the Apple Store and download Igniting a Nation's new app today.
Shalom. I'm Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker, inviting you to join me and Israel's #1 rated guide, Edo Canaan, for our annual Israel trip. Our 2022 trip is now open for registration for our 18th trip to Israel. Our trip will take us from Tel Aviv to the Galilee, down to the Dead Sea, and 4 nights in Jerusalem. You will walk where Yeshua walked and watch the Bible turn from black and white to living color. Visit ignitinganation.com/events and download the registration form today. No, it's not too early to take advantage of our payment plan designed to fit any budget. All of our trips sell out, and we want you to experience this life-changing journey. Registration is now open for April 2nd to 13th, 2022, and we promise you, you will never read your Bible the same way again. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, Messianic Rabbi Eric Walker. We're talking to Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood from the Functional Medical Institute in their practice in osteopathy and in homeopathy.
Very good.
Obtaining the goal for optimum health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Mark and Michele, welcome back.
Thank you. We're excited. It's good.
So we've been talking about the aging process, and you know the trigger is this marker 65 years is what determines. It seems to be that the family practitioner that I had dropped me and said, you now need to go, I'm referring you to a geriatric practice. Oh, yeah. And I said, you know, I had to beat the tar out of you. You know, what do you call me old?
Yeah.
And referred me to a guy who that's what he works with. And I said, you know, I'm not a fit for you, so I'm just going to tell you, I'm not looking for a relationship. Medicare requires me to have a doctor, so you're the name that I'm putting down. But don't expect to see me, except for once a year, and only because they badger me. Medicare badgers, they literally badger you to have an annual wellness check. They will remind you every 2 weeks until it's scheduled and done. And it started, my birthday's in January, so it starts in January. I've now moved it out to where it's now at the end of July. Next year, I have it in September.
There you go.
Then next September, I'll move it to the following November of the next year. And then I'll finally ultimately get it to the point where it's December the 30th. Right? And kind of like beat the box, get out from under this system, because it drives me crazy. I mean, I go to him, and I don't know if you know the mental acuity test that they give you to check your mental acuity is they give you 4 words at the beginning of the exam, and 10 minutes into the exam they ask you what are the 4 words, and this was a telehealth because of COVID, and I said, before you even start, if you're going to tell me box, door, pencil, and house as the 4 words to remember, those are the same 4 words you've been asking me for 5 years. If they're the same words, I already remember them. And he started laughing. He said, yes, I still use the same words. So I said, well, you know, don't ask me any more questions about my mind. Let's move on. And so that pretty much ended the exam because he was just checking my mental acuity. I remember the words from 5 years ago you asked me. You know, so
that's very bright.
They're very smart, yeah.
You know, aging is something that is biological. You know, the ratio of life to death is 1 for 1.
Yep.
But the enjoyment of the aging process can be enhanced by certain factors, and that's what we want to talk about now. Or what are those contributing factors, and what should we be doing if we're not doing them? And if we are doing them, is there an optimal way of getting the best benefit from what it is we're doing, which is the plan that I'm on with you, is that I reached an optimal point, or I reached a goal, and now I'm enhancing the goal to optimize the results of what it was that I did.
Well, it's interesting because I think the aging process really can be boiled down to the uh, inability of the body, or lowered ability of the body to repair, rejuvenate, rebuild. Right? That would make sense. If it gets where it can't repair, rejuvenate, and rebuild, that's probably going to be a process by which the body begins to decay. Right? So if we can look at slowing that process, we look at back up and say, how do we repair, rebuild, and regenerate? Keep that going. Well, there's a good way to sort of examine that. It's the kind of the buildup of these things called free radicals. Free radicals are just waste products. If you have a car and you drive it, gasoline, the combustion engine, creates waste products that are kicked out the tailpipe. Our body, when we use oxygen, it's combined with nutrients to create energy called ATP, or the proper term is adenosine triphosphate. That is our energy molecule for the body. When it's created, there's a molecule of magnesium that's bound to that, and that energy is transferred to other cells. Now, in the process of creating energy, just like our car, you're going to create waste products. These waste products in the body are indeed called free radicals, and they build up in the body, and if they build up too much, that is the aging process in a nutshell from a cellular level. Now, our body has mechanisms that are actually able to dismantle the free radicals. Now, isn't that cool? So, God made our system to create free radicals. These aren't bad, but also dismantle them. And when the dismantling mechanism gets sort of less functional, the free radicals build up and they create damage that is in a state of disrepair, which is the process which our body is decaying. That is aging 101. The free radicals begin to show up in their process of our lives about 40. We all get 40 years old. We begin to look around at class reunions and we're like, okay, now that person looks older now than they ought to, and that person still looks younger than they ought to. So clearly that is the biological aging process, which is correlated very well with free radical accumulation, if you're following that thought process. So when we look at the body's ability to quench or dismantle free radicals, we can talk about a few enzymes. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, there are a lot of enzymes that we look at genetically. One is called enos, which aids in the production of nitric oxide, which is one of the big vasodilators for our vessels. And we start seeing a lot of oxidative stress when nitric oxide is not produced like it should be. Mm-hmm. There's also an enzyme called SOD, or superoxide dismutase, and that is actually starting to convert that hydrogen peroxide and break it down into water and oxide through another enzyme called catalase. Also, there is a glutathione peroxidase, which is an enzyme that is dependent upon, of course, certain antioxidants to function properly. And if any or one of these enzymes has some sort of weakness in it, or if the cofactors, meaning the nutrients that they are dependent upon, are weak or deficient, those enzyme systems don't work optimally to squelch out this oxidative stress or free radical damage. And the end result of that is, of course, going to be DNA damage or tissue damage, leading to accelerated aging and frailty.
And here's the cool part of that.
Well, because a lot of that's very technical and scientific. So let's kind of put this into terms that are we talking about things that impact heart disease?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cancer?
Yes.
Organ related, so renal failure,
Yes.
Sclerosis of the liver,
Brain stuff.
Cognitive abilities.
Yes.
Is there things like Parkinson's, Lewy body, Alzheimer's, those kind of factors that come into play? Are they can they be impacted?
Absolutely.
Yes.
In
sure we can.
a positive way,
Yes.
they can be impacted in both a positive way or a negative way.
Yeah.
If we allow the free radical damage to occur, it increases inflammation. So inflammation is the precursor to all chronic sickness and disease.
So where do we get these free radicals from? What are the sources, common sources, that if I look at my list of what I'm taking in, that this item, this item, this item, this item are contributing to an increase in free radicals in my body, which are creating an environment in which disease can prosper. And if I eliminate them, then I'm improving the host.
Yeah, there's a good list, and this is really easy to get. It's common sense once you think about it. Lack of sufficient sleep will absolutely lead to free radical buildup, clearly. And the quandary we have with that one, Rabbi Eric, is the idea that as we age, the pineal gland back here, the third eye, if we want to call it, stops making melatonin, which is the sleep hormone, efficiently. Therefore, as we age, the tendency is, well, I only need 4 hours of sleep, I'm good. That's false. That means that we have a melatonin deficiency, which can be corrected to elongate sleep to minimize free radical buildup and damage. So lack of sleep, we need 7 probably to 8 hours, regardless of what we think or feel. We need that going on.
So let me clarify this, because I've seen 2 different studies. One says you need 7 to 8 hours of sleep, 12 p.m. to 7 a.m., and another study said you need 7 to 8 hours sleep, but if you take a 3-hour nap and get 5 hours at night, you're getting a sum total and you're getting the same benefit. Which is true?
It would be both, really, because ultimately there are sleep cycles that we're supposed to complete in a 24-hour period, and those sleep cycles, really we want to complete about 4, maybe 5 of those, and they take about 1.5 hours to complete and about 10 to 15 minutes to transition. So generally the biphasic sleeping patterns that you're talking about, naps versus not, the body has a unique ability to put you into those states to make up for what was not accomplished in the main sleeping. So it's actually both. We just got to get that in, and both are right. One's not wrong, one's not more right. They're both right as long as we complete the cycles.
Because I think that there are lifestyles, mine being one of them, because I'm on TV in the morning and I teach at night. So there's times when I don't get home until late. That takes, then you have to decompress and get back in, and by that time it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you got to be back up at 6 or earlier. So you can create a hybrid.
You bet, you sure can.
It gives you a lot more latitude in that. Okay, and dietary inflammation is the enemy. Is that kind of a general category?
A term that we maybe want to modify the word inflammation is inflammaging, right? Inflammaging, because it's a buildup of inflammation which is driven by states of disrepair, right? So we're back to that ill repair state. And there are a ton of things that we put in our bodies every day. Again, we talked about sleep is one way to reduce that, but what about our food, man? This is a huge deal. We live in a chemically filled environment that you cannot control 100%. Chemicals, pesticides, herbicides, unknown chemicals that are in our furniture, upholstery, carpet, on our food supplies that we're putting in our mouth, those things are foreign to the body. Too much of that, the body can't detoxify it. That does become free radicals. So the more poor we eat, the more unnatural we eat, the more these, I call them anti-unfoods, we put in our body, it's going to crush the human being. So that's why these comorbidities that we talked about in segment number 1 are so prevalent today, because obesity. Obesity is not an excess food problem. It's actually a lack of food problem. We're not getting enough food there. The body's just still hungry and trying to store stuff and figure out what it's going to do with this garbage. Toxins get stored in fat. So, from a lifestyle standpoint, what you put in, and then probably too the idea of not moving. You talked about sedentary lifestyle. We have to move. How does our body detoxify? It moves. We move. We sweat. We walk. We excrete things through urine, stool, and sweat. It's movement. It's good food, and it's managing stress, and it's sleep. Those are the basic premises.
And we also have to think about excessive alcohol and smoking and other habits that we might have. We mentioned this earlier in the presentation today about medications. Now, for every medication an individual is taking, there is some nutrient that is being pulled out. Now, these enzymes that we were talking about, each one of these enzymes has a cofactor, and these cofactors are vitamins and minerals. So if we're taking a lot of drugs, even over-the-counter medications that we forget to think about, like our acid reducers and our pain relievers, those are pulling out nutrients that these enzymes are dependent upon for tissue and DNA repair.
There's a cool website that if the listeners want to go there, you can plug in your own medications, and you can see what's pulled out if you want to. I mean, it's called MyTavin, MyTavin.com. We use it all the time, and it's easy to use it. Plug in your medications. It'll spit out the nutrients and the symptoms you might be suffering.
What I'd like to do on our next segment when we come back on next month, I want us to take a look at what we eat and when we should eat it. Because I know that for me, if I eat certain things late, they have an impact on me, and the order or the combination or groupings of what makes for balanced, if multiple medications have that effect, then food combinations would also have a comparable effect, because the medications are often derivatives of food products. So that would open up a narrative into what I eat and when I eat it may play some factor in contributing to it. One real fast question before we close. A study was done and a TED presentation was done. One of the most fascinating ones that I ever saw was that bacteria actually communicates to bacteria. So the reason you have living bacteria in your body all the time, you get a cut, it gets infected. Why did it get done? Why did it get infected? Because that bacteria called and said, "Hey boys, come on, meet me over here." Do the free radicals, do they have that same kind of communication ability? Because I know that the doctor that was working on this study was not working on an antibiotic, but was working on a communicator that was sending an all-clear signal that was going to fake out the bacteria. You would take this medication that sends a signal to the bacteria, "Hey, nothing to see here, everybody's happy, all's good," so that the bacteria wasn't dispatched. A fascinating study, but free radicals are the cancer causers, bigger than my infected finger. So if bacteria has an intelligent communication system, free radicals, which are always in us, do they have the ability to mobilize as well?
Well, you think about a free radical has a charge to it. And the more free radicals, the more negative charge. So your body's going to launch its machinery, its armamentarium, its military, and let's say it's going to become a cancer. It's going to start trying to create its own blood supply. It's going to start creating its own identity right there where that free radical damage is occurring.
See,
just like bacteria talks to each other,
Right.
our body is we live symbiotically with bacteria and viruses, and they all have this working relationship that's harmonious or not.
See,
Yeah.
we're never really presented with this picture.
Mm.
We're always presented with disease, symptoms, and cures, but in understanding how God designed this, there's an internal communication system going on at multiple levels. This is how insulin knows when to be released, and this is how all these things know when to do what they're supposed to do. God created it this way, and you have an understanding. And if I can comprehend it and understand it, then it gives me the tools in which I can manage it. Then I will then step into the role of manager and take control over that which is harmful. If you tell me this is harmful to you, I'm going to take control over it. Right?
Yeah.
We've been talking with Doctors Michele and Mark Sherwood, who are special guests of ours, featured guests on the third Thursday of every month at 11 o'clock. And we're talking about wellness, and that wellness is a lifelong wellness for optimum health in your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. You can find more about them at fmidr.com. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.